Let me start by saying that I had to introduce this resolution, and I won't go into detail on the resolution's contents and timeline, but the resolution speaks for itself. Suffice it is that this board has always talked about transparency and accountability, and maybe some of your officers receive more information from Mr. Beutner than I do. In fact, I'm sure that your offices receive more information than I do from Mr. Beutner, but the secrecy has got to stop. It's an affront to me, and it's an affront to the constituents who I represent. As you know, several days after this resolution was submitted, all board members received 109 pages of contracts and agreements between the California Community Foundation and the consultants who are being paid by Eli Broad and other contributors to the Fund for Excellence and Equity. Judging from the dates on these agreements, the contracts have existed for months. Some were signed in July and August of last year. So we have September, October, November, December, January, February. Very strange. Some were even signed, as I said, in July and August, and it seems that the deadlines for completion for most of these consultant services have passed already several months ago. So first, I want to thank you, Mr. Beutner, for providing the contracts that we recently received, the 109 pages. I'd like to restate for the record that I remain incredulous and very frustrated that it took 4 months and a formal resolution to get you to disclose these documents. As an elected member of the board, I should not have to consider filing a Public Records Act request to find out the terms and scope of services for vendors that your philanthropists think should be driving the future of our district. There is still outstanding information that was requested on October the 1st, and that is included in my resolution. The documents that we have now raise more questions than they answer, and I'd like to see a public meeting scheduled to discuss the various reimagining consultants, their backgrounds, their process, their track records in other school districts. I think it is critical that we have these conversations before we go forward with their proposals or any district reorganization or policy changes based on their analysis. I've read the 109 pages, and I am just so saddened to see some of the people who are consultants come from failing districts across the United States. I would kind of hope that they would be coming from success stories, but they're not. And that is my statement for this resolution.
Very good. Anyone else? Board members? Okay.
Is there going to be a response from anyone? I mean, did we provide Mr. Schmerlson the information?
So as much as could be provided at that time, I believe the staff is continuing to follow up, and within days the rest will be provided. I would comment just two things. It is first my intent to make sure every board member has as much information to be transparent, to be accountable for that information as well. And in the informative that was shared with the board, the consultants were there to provide ideas, experiences to an internal team led by experienced internal folks. Ultimately, whatever recommendations or plans will be their recommendation, will be implemented by people who work for LA Unified. So we're only going to be looking at things which will make a difference for this district that people who work in this district think can be implemented here in Los Angeles.
I want to finish, though, with my, if it's okay to finish with my statements. I was subject to denial of information as a board member under a previous regime. And I know how bad it feels. All board members should have access to exactly the same information. And if it's his perception, it's a reality. And I think we as a board all need to say that loud and clear. And you, as I know, our superintendent, have to understand that that is a sacred thing, that we all have the same information and there's no favorites in terms of information. And so I just want a public affirmation going forward that we're all going to share the information with all board members equally.
100%.
Because to me, he deserves it as much as Ms. Garcia, Dr. McKenna, or me, because I know exactly what he's gone through, and it's untenable if he feels that way. I'm not going to get into the merits. I happen to believe in this case, he asked many months ago and should have been given the information, and I feel strong about that. So I accept your answer that you're going to ensure that there's a transparency and no favoritism in information, and I would like to go forward on that basis, and I feel we can.
Very good. Superintendent and board members, I think, Dr. V, you raise an issue that I too have felt. I remember when I first came on the board, I had to write our general counsel a memo and put my election certificate behind it to say it, because this was a public conversation, and
Right.
and some of the information, because of my public position, the general counsel felt he had to protect the district and was concerned about a member of the governing board having access at particular times, but it is a wrestle. And I think that I too lift the absolute honor of representing people, and that the board asks the superintendent to do a job, and board members need to have the information that they need to do their job, and there's a responsibility in getting that information. And this board has worked together over the last few months in very difficult circumstances with very diverse opinions. And I hope that we can all be learners about the governance, management, relationship, and that we all need to be able to have conversation, have requests, have trust with sensitive information, because when it's not adhered to, it creates real challenges on how to serve our children and the families that rely on our organization. Okay, that's all for me. Anybody else? Can we have a ready for a vote? Let's do it. Mr. Crane, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Okeke is temporarily out. Ms. Gomez?
Yes.
Yes vote. Dr. McKenna?
We're voting on Mr. Schmerdelson?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Tab 21, a yes vote. Mr. Melvoin?
Yes.
Mr. Schmerdelson?
Yes.
Dr. Vladevic?
Yes, and I need to say something. There's good news. They caught the suspect in the gym with a gun at Jordan High School. He went into
Yeah.
the gym, and I was worried. Outside, ran into school with a gun, and they surrounded it. They got him with no
Dr.
one hurt.
Vladevic
Thank
is
you. I'm sorry
sharing
for that.
for the Jordan community.
hate
The
it. I was
suspect
real
has been
worried, yeah.
apprehended. I'm going to vote no, because I expect better of this body in the way it deals with its employee. And I am accepting the ability to learn, and so I'll vote no. Okay.